Greetings, Culture Warriors. This is Jeff Vieira, author of Culture is Everything, and your host for this latest dispatch from the front. Oh, the great sortation continues to take hold here in America. This story today from the Business Insider. Liberal shoppers are hammering Home Depot's conservative roots, but the political reality of the home improvement big boxes is far more complicated. For some home improvement shoppers, orange signs and blue signs are the new red states and blue states. Over the past year, Home Depot has consistently been hammered online over the conservative political stances of two of its founders, Bernie Marcus and Ken Langone, or Langone. I'm not sure. Tell you how much of a conservative bigwig he is. I don't know how to pronounce his name. Both have vocalized consistent support for U.S. President Donald Trump. How dare they? Both have become outspoken and prolific donors to Republican causes and candidates since retiring from the retailer decades ago. How dare they? Our founders have not been with the Home Depot for nearly 20 years, and they don't speak on behalf of the company, a Home Depot spokesperson told Business Insider. Why do I suspect that spokesperson does not support Donald Trump and does not send money to Republican causes? Their status as retirees has not stopped the outraged social media users from encouraging left-leaning shoppers to spend their cash at Lowe's instead. Observers have cited the North Carolina-based company's financial support of minority-owned businesses and its current CEO, Marvin Ellison's status as one of four Black Fortune 500 CEOs. Okay, look, there's more to the article. You can read the rest of it if you like, but you can get the slant right off the bat. Lowe's equals good, Home Depot equals bad. Now, let's look at it through the lens of culture and values. Home Depot and Lowe's are both in the home improvement industry, right? They provide supplies to contractors as well as homeowners to support construction projects. Now, let me ask you something. Do you really think that there's a greater proportion of do-it-yourselfers amongst the fine wine and microbrew ZZ Top-bearded hipster community that comprises today's left-wing cadres? Or do you think it's middle-class dads who don't really want to pay a contractor to do the work for them, or just want to do it themselves on the weekends as having something to do? I think very clearly the target demographic is the latter, along with the working contractor, who, by the way, is typically not a fine wine and microbrew loving hipster. They're much more Budweiser or Modelo than they are those particular products. So what would make you think that it would ever be in Lowe's interest to chase after essentially the target demographic? By target, I mean the actual company target, versus the Walmart demographic. It makes no sense, no business sense whatsoever. Lowe's, of course, is headquartered in Charlotte, North Carolina. Now, Charlotte is kind of a split town at the moment. I lived in Charlotte for many years. I have not lived there for a few years, but still have friends and family back in that area. And what's happened to Charlotte is that there's continued to be an influx, largely for banking, to the area of liberals. Now, Charlotte itself is a pretty conservative town. And there's still a little bit of that old conservative network at, kind of at the heart of the town, although that's ebbing as you get more and more refugees from blue states coming to the Charlotte area. It's hard to see Lowe's becoming a, quote, woke company, to use the term favored by so-called social justice warriors, because it would mean alienating many people who would buy the products and services offered by Lowe's. Lowe's already has a little bit more of a feminine feel to it than Home Depot does. And that was by design. The Lowe's was targeting home improvement customers who wouldn't mind a little more help, a little bit better customer service, a little easier to navigate stores. They were making it friendly to women doing home improvement projects, and there's nothing wrong with that. But the notion that they would continue down that path to the point where it would alienate the core of their business, which is those middle-class dads doing projects on the weekends and the contractors who do projects for a living, that would just be suicide. It's stupid. And so this reporter, trying to gin up a 2-minute hate against Home Depot for having dared to have been founded by two guys who didn't pull the lever for Bernie Sanders, not that that mattered because they cooked the primary against him, but who wouldn't pull the lever for creepy Joe Biden. So they got to gin this up. And since that industry is really dominated by two players, Lowe's and Home Depot, you make one of them the conservative one, and you make the other the Lowe's. Now, here's something else that may be of interest. I tend to prefer myself to shop at Lowe's. I like going to Lowe's mainly because when I'm going in to shop for something specific, I can find it faster. And if I have a question, I have a heck of a lot better chance of getting an answer from somebody working in the aisles at Lowe's than I do from Home Depot, who tend to make it a point to disappear whenever you go to ask them something. So I generally find that the experience is a little bit better and a little bit quicker at Lowe's, which is why I shop there. It just so happens that where we're living now, I think the Lowe's is actually a little bit closer and easier to access, so that's what we do. Lowe's also, despite being branded now by the left-wing media as a hipster home improvement place, Lowe's continues to give a nice discount for the military. If you can show by presenting them with your DD form there that you were in the military, you get a nice discount from them. And especially if you're buying appliances and that sort of thing, that discount can add up to a significant savings. I'm not sure if Home Depot does that. It's never been offered to me. It's possible that they have it, but you have to go through customer service or there's some Byzantine process you got to follow to get it. But Lowe's was nice because they were military friendly, veteran friendly. There's also parking out in front of Lowe's, at least for the ones out here in Colorado, for veterans, which is a nice touch. So again, this military friendly, veteran friendly nature of Lowe's also makes for a positive experience, given I'm from that demographic as well. But the beast must be fed, the clicks must be garnered, and so we'll have a story about how Lowe's is safe to shop for the social justice warrior and an approved home improvement big box store, whereas Home Depot is out of favor and we must hate it and eschew it. So as a result of this article, I'm going to make my next trip to the hardware store be to Home Depot. Try and even out those scales a little bit. I doubt very seriously that the values of Lowe's and the values of Home Depot are very much different. They've been around for a long time. They were founded under similar circumstances, and it's just funny to watch how people will twist the dysfunctional, toxic politics and ideologies of our day, and try and get everything down to you are allowed to shop here, and these businesses must be punished for not being sufficiently on board with the social justice warrior left-wing agenda. What's interesting is this is just a sign that the culture war itself has moved now to the left trying to take institutional control of all the large corporations and brands. So having dominated academia, having dominated the entertainment industry, having dominated now, as we're clearly seeing, the technology companies and social media, they have now set their sights on the business world. This is going to be interesting because so many people who are of a conservative or libertarian bent have made the business world their home. And the way they're going about this takeover is by using the push for diversity and inclusion to place dedicated left-wing people in charge of these companies. It'll be interesting to see how it works out, because you not only have to have the CEOs and the senior executives fit that bill, but you've got to have the boards, because at the end of the day, for most of these publicly held companies, the boards kind of drive a lot of those decisions. You've got to have the board members on there. Now, how you get to be a board member is very much an inside networking thing. So it's certainly subject to corruption, and it's certainly possible that once you get a critical mass of like-thinking left-wingers, that you could dominate a number of these boards. The question is, how many can you possibly have? Because when you talk about the amount of left-wing professors we now have, when you talk about the amount of left-wing media moguls we now have, you don't really have a lot of people. This is still a small number of people in the United States of America. It's very much a minority opinion that gets amplified through the media and through academia. So how many people do you have to go to board meetings at that point? I don't know. There is a lot more of kind of the standard American right of center, if not conservative or libertarian point of view that comprises the most. I guess the objective is to fill all of the top leadership positions with the dedicated leftist cadres, and then the worker bees, the people who actually make things happen, well, they can all be knuckle-dragging troglodytes like myself. That seems to be the way the strategy is playing out. It will be interesting to see if these companies continue to be separated from their actual customer base by these political hacks, if that continues to be a winning strategy. So far, you got to admit it is. You see all these companies terrified of having bad press from leftist publications. Don't know why that is, unless your product happens to be sold disproportionately to people who subscribe to left-wing publications. I don't know why you'd be worried about that, but they are. And we'll have to see how this culture war continues to play out. If the left succeeds in taking over a large number of the Fortune 500 C-suites, well, I mean, it's essentially game over at that point, right? What is it that they don't control in the U.S.? We will have, at that point, an aristocracy that is able to freeze out the entire rest of the country. They comprise maybe tops 20% of Americans, and they will be able to simply dictate to the 80% what gets done, because your employment will be dependent upon it. How much money and personal wealth you're allowed to keep will be dependent upon it. What you're allowed to do will be dependent on it. If you want to buy a home, well, you're going to have to go through a bank at that point that's run by leftists. And you're already seeing the big banks make clear that if you don't toe the line ideologically, they will not make their products available to you. Very chilling development over the past year, as we've seen some of the big banks start to go down this road. So at some point, obviously that can't stand. You cannot have a tiny minority lord absolutely over a great majority of people, especially of people as freedom-loving as Americans. But we are at a point where the silent majority either needs to speak up or learn to shine the shackles that are being placed upon us. And that's the happy message for you today. Hopefully more people are waking up, and we're not going to take the media bait on these things, because otherwise we won't have a very great day.